Sim racing platforms are becoming increasingly complicated to set up. With literally millions of possible vehicle setup configurations, it's hard to always know where to start first. In this video, we'll take you through 5 essential setup changes to understand why they're so useful. One of the easiest and most effective changes you can make to the handling of any race car is its ride height. Ride height is the distance measured between the lowest point of the car to the track surface. And this ride height is measured at the front and the rear of the car and is normally adjusted front to back as well. By adjusting the ride height of your car, you can move the weight of the car either towards the front wheels or the rear wheels. By moving the weight towards the front or the rear, you can add more or less mechanical grip to either end of the car. For example, to counter understeer, you can lower the front ride height or raise the rear ride height. And to counter oversteer, you can do the opposite. Generally, you'll want your car to be as low as physically possible to the ground before the car bottoms out. A lower car means the center of gravity is lower, and that gives you better cornering and stability when in the corner. This keeps all 4 wheels in contact with the track surface more consistently. Ride height is a great starting point with setup because conceptually it's very simple. Whichever axle is struggling, so the front or the rear of the car, move the weight towards them. Another quick and simple adjustment you can make is to the aerodynamics of your car. Usually you will have adjustability in the rear wing angle as well as the front wing or splitter. Adding more rear wing angle will increase the downforce in higher speed corners, pushing the rear of the car into the ground. This will increase rear end grip. Adding more front wing or splitter angle will increase the downforce over the front axle and improve front end grip. As the car generates more downforce, it will also increase the amount of wind resistance or drag caused by the air flowing over the car. This will essentially make the car slower in a straight line. More weight from the downforce pushing down over the tyres will create more grip. So increasing downforce will give you much better handling through the corners, but it will slow you down on the straights. A very general rule is that for tracks with long straights such as Monza or Daytona, you will want a low downforce car. Whilst tracks with shorter straights, you can get away with running higher downforce, like most tight street circuits. An anti-roll bar is a stiffening rod that connects both the left-hand side and right-hand side of your car's suspension. The stiffness of the roll bar can be adjusted to reduce the amount of body roll or suspension movement from side to side. By limiting this movement, you can keep all 4 wheels in contact with the ground at all times. Normally, a race car has 2 anti-roll bars, one for the front suspension and another for the rear suspension, and they can be adjusted independently of each other. Anti-roll bars can be used to limit understeer and oversteer and to help the car stay stable through the corners. For setting the anti-roll bars, you can reduce understeer by making the rear of the car stiffer or the front of the car softer. Or the opposite, making the front stiffer and the rear softer to help reduce oversteer. Generally, you'll want to keep the car in a sweet spot where it's not too soft and not too stiff. On either side of this sweet spot, the car can sometimes be unpredictable and unstable. For example, making the roll bars too stiff can promote unpredictable handling traits, as bumps and curbs can shock the suspension. Like with ride height, anti-roll bars are a universal setup change that will alter handling characteristics for all types of corner. Camber not only looks cool, but also provides a way to keep the tyre in full contact with the ground when cornering. The way to think about this is when cornering, a car will lean to its outer side. For example, if you turn left, the weight of the car will lean right. When the car rolls, the suspension geometry of the car moves and the tyres will tilt. When turning, you also have the bulk of the tyre folding under the wheel rim, and for this reason you need to add negative camber to the car so that when turning, the majority of the tyre is in contact with the surface. Cars typically run a negative camber, which is where the top of the wheel is tucked in closer to the car body and the bottom of the wheel is pushed further away. The goal when setting camber is to keep as much of the tyre surface in contact with the road as possible. This will give you the highest amount of grip available, as there is a smaller amount of the tyre in contact with the ground. The best way to measure if your camber is working correctly is to check your tyre temperatures, measuring the inside, middle and outside method, IMO. An excessively hot inside edge of your tyre will indicate too much camber, whereas a hot outer edge will indicate not enough. You should test camber settings over a number of laps and ensure you have the tyre pressures set to their optimum ranges, paying close attention to which part of the tyre heats up the quickest. Probably the most important part of vehicle setup is the tyre pressures. The air pressure within the tyres plays an important role in their grip levels and life cycle. Again, like with all our other points, the objective here is to have as much tyre in contact with the ground as possible. Tyre with little air pressure will soften the tyre, creating more squash, a larger contact patch and more friction with the road surface. This will give lots of grip, but also higher tyre temperatures. A tyre with more air will stiffen the tyre wall, creating a bulge in the centre of the tyre, reducing the contact patch, but also reducing the tyre temperature. The aim is to get the tyre within the optimum pressure range while still keeping low enough temperatures to last. Unfortunately, every sim runs a slightly different tyre model, so it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. For example, ACC is very sensitive to tyre temperatures and pressures and can create a large fall-off when not set correctly. iRacing, on the other hand, is less sensitive and can allow for a slightly larger operating window. For more information about optimum tyre temperatures, you can check out our sim racing page for detailed articles. So the best way to optimize and learn setup changes is to pick a car and a track you're familiar with, set some lap times and then make one setup change at a time. Then go back out on circuit and feel the difference for yourself. Sometimes it may take a larger change in setup to notice a considerable difference. So don't be worried about making big changes, especially when you're beginning. And I'd just like to say a quick thanks to Thrustmaster for sending us this SF1000 steering wheel, which is a replica from the Ferrari F1 car. If you enjoyed this video on sim racing setup, make sure you check out these other videos, which I think you'll love. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next one.